Steven Pifer is the former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine and joins me now from Palo Alto, California. Sir, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Let's talk first, of course, about President Zelensky's speech to Congress. And he spoke in English to directly appeal to American lawmakers as well as the American people. Did he succeed in shoring up more support?
I think it was a very successful speech, and it was a nice touch to speak in English. Even if it was English was not a comfortable language for him, addressing the Congress in English was the right thing to do. But he did, I think, three things that were very important. One, expressed gratitude not just to Congress, but to the American people for American support. Second, he made the very correct point that this war is not just about Ukraine. It's about much bigger things that concern the West, things like a rules-based international order, things like broader threats to Europe that could come from Russia should Russia succeed. And the third point he made is that, well, of course, it's been the Ukrainian soldiers who've been fighting and dying, but fighting with great tenacity, skill, and courage. It also is important that he reminded Congress that they need tools to fight. And that means continuing weapons and ammunition from the West.
That's right. And that has come in the form of the latest U.S. package of military aid, including the Patriot missile battery. We know that Russian airstrikes are just slamming, just raining down on Ukraine. What will the Patriot do to better defend the country?
Yeah, the Patriot has a very good capability against enemy aircraft, but also against ballistic missiles. And that may be sort of the unique contributions. The Patriot will allow Ukraine to defend against Russian ballistic missiles, such as the Iskander. And again, the provision of this, so there's also a symbolic message here, which is a commitment of long-term American support, because it'll take a while to train the Ukrainians on the Patriot. But that's showing that, several months down the line, America's still going to be there.
And the issue of more aid, in his speech, Zelensky said this, quote, "We have artillery, yes, thank you. Is it enough? Not really." And that was a moment that actually got a laugh in the chamber. But it is a very, very significant point. Ukraine will be seeking more aid, but will a divided Congress approve it?
Yeah, again, I think part of the message that Zelensky directed at the Congress was to bolster support for Ukraine. And bear in mind that if you go back to the early 1990s, there's a long tradition of bipartisan support for Ukraine. It was really only in the last 8 or 9 months where you've seen this fissure emerge within the Republican Party, where most Republicans, I believe, understand the importance of Ukraine and that the Americans have an interest in Ukraine's defense. You have, though, this minority group, the people who, MAGA people, perhaps the incoming Speaker of the House, who, though, seem to question that. And I think this speech probably bolstered support, not only within Congress, but also among the American public for Ukraine.
And to finally just zero in on one of the three takeaways that you've taken away from Mr. Zelensky's speech, how this is bigger than Ukraine. In his speech, the Ukrainian president warned that if Russia is not defeated in Ukraine, it will come soon for other U.S. allies in Europe. Do you also believe that could happen?
Vladimir Putin back in June talked about recovering historic Russian land. So he said, what the Russian military is doing in Ukraine, we're not capturing territory, we are regaining historic Russian land. Well, if you look at old maps of the Russian Empire, the Baltic states were once historic Russian land. And I do worry a bit that if Putin succeeds in Ukraine and is emboldened, he may then try something against one of the Baltic states. And remember, when we're talking about Ukraine, it's the United States providing weapons and money. If it's a Baltic state, a member of NATO, the United States is going to be providing weapons, money, and the lives of American soldiers. It's better to stop Putin in Ukraine.
Yeah, very massive and frightful stakes at play here. Ambassador Steve Pifer, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.